I would love to connect you if you haven't been connected with Megan from Flourish, the She Boss podcast.
I haven't been.
If you want that, they actually just posted that. What's her name? Peyton from Channel 48.
Yes,
the Tennessee Valley.
The Tennessee Valley Living. Yes, and Bethany from Stovehouse keeps saying that she's going to set up a time for me to meet Peyton, because I haven't met her either, and apparently I'm the only one in Stovehouse that hasn't met her.
Oh, really?
So.
Well, and I would imagine she would bring her show to you, right?
Yeah.
And they would come and kind of check out your store?
Yeah, she came and did a piece at the Parlor, which just opened down that alley from us. But she hasn't been in to Peachtree yet, so.
Yeah. Well, and I'll definitely connect you. And I guess I don't think she would mind, because Megan's whole thing is she wants to interview women CEOs, right? And that's what you are.
Yeah.
And the same thing would be for Amy Bailey. And when I interviewed Britt Silcox from Bright Eyed Brands, I just kind of like presumptively just said, "Oh yeah, hey, we'll get you on Megan's show," And after the fact, I'm like, "Well, I hope that's okay." But and that's pretty cool. There's a lot of good ones. Now this will be a little different. This will be longer than anything you've ever done. And the whole idea is, I don't necessarily, I probably should have done full research and gone through and listened to those. I didn't feel like I needed to, because I kind of knew what angle I wanted to go and kind of the story that we're gonna tackle and tell today. But I hope that it ultimately provides you just the unlimited opportunity to answer any question to the maximum length you want, with maximum detail. That's the whole point.
Perfect.
I don't care. I have in my head what I want to talk about. I'm never going to give a guest questions. Okay. And I was doing some research yesterday while I was running. Usually when the day of or the day before, I will go on a run, and I run as often as I can. 2 to 5 times. 5 times is like, I have done 5 times a week, but at my age now, it's like, oh, it's too much. So 2 to 3 times a week, run 4 miles over on the Bradford Creek. And I listen to a few interior design podcasts, because I have to use my time wisely.
Yes.
Got a lot going on in life. And so I'm not going to listen to music, and I'm going to prepare for a guest. And I was glad I did, but it's hard to choose. I was telling my wife last night, you can have, like, let's say 10 years ago, maybe even a little bit more than 10 years ago, any question you had, you go to Google and you get it from Google. And then about 10 years ago, particularly probably when Google bought YouTube, now your question is also in video.
Yes.
Oh, I want to learn something. I want to do whatever. Well, now it's actually even more so. Now there's a podcast for your specialty area.
Yes.
And so I'm like,
there are a lot of design podcasts.
Is there any particular one that one of the questions that we're going to dive into, of course, at some point, is where you get your ideas and what's the trends. And there's several things related to that I want to discuss. But do you have any particular influencers, podcast, books that you, I don't know, on your short list of go-tos?
For design, I listen to a couple. Most of the design podcasts that I listen to are specifically for owners of interior design firms. So I listen to like a well-designed business, and she just talks about specifically the ins and outs of owning a design firm, because it's a unique career clientele. So niche, very niche. Yeah. So, but I listen to that one, and there are a couple of others. Sometimes I just pop around based on if I'm looking for a specific topic. There's one that's these two. What are they? I can't even remember the name of it, but it's something like Young Beautiful Designers or something like that. And both of them are hilarious, because they're like, neither of us are young anymore or beautiful.
They were at one time.
So they say. But I've met them at a trade show before, and they're just the nicest people.
Yeah.
But it's just there's so much out there that if I'm trying to find like a specific topic, like, hiring has been lately one that I'm going into deep dives of.
How do you vet a potential employee? And what level of background do you do, or that type of thing to cover yourself?
Yeah, and then going to like with the nitty gritty of, how do you even look at someone's previous work to decide if they will be a good fit for your team, because that's something that I'm learning how to do as I'm kind of letting go of the reins. And so,
yeah. So let's do this. I'm going to do a quick overall intro. I don't want to belabor the intro because my style is throughout the 2 hours we're going to learn a lot about Carolyn.
Yes.
And we're not going to capture everything in a 15-second overview. But in short, Carolyn Fester is your maiden name, right?
Yes.
Carolyn Kimbro. 3 beautiful boys, ages 5, 3, and almost 1.
Yes.
Right? And so we have 4. We have 3 boys and a girl ourselves. Wendy, my wife, is in the studio, so we were chatting before we hit record on just trading notes on kids and spacing of kids, and now next week is our 25th anniversary.
Congratulations.
And I don't feel that old, but I guess I look that old. I don't know. It's weird. But anyway, you have 3 boys, so you're definitely a busy mom. And what's your husband's name?
Tyler.
Tyler, okay. And I must have known there was a basketball player, I think, that was named Bo Kimbro back in the day. And it would be crazy if I actually told you what school he played for. And I think he played for Cincinnati a long time ago. But I just had Amy Bailey on, and her husband's name is Bo. But of course, it's Bo, it's Bo Bailey. And so for some reason, the Kimbro, I just want to call your husband Bo, even though it's that's not his name. But there was a guy. It's just like a Bo Kimbro would be a very you would just remember that because it rhymes and stuff.
You know what's funny is we have a dog whose name is Rhett Bo.
Oh, really?
And so we do have a Bo in there. It's just his middle name.
So you were born in Fort Lauderdale. You mostly grew up though in Atlanta,
yes.
in the Atlanta area. You went to Auburn. You went abroad and studied in Italy. You lived in Charleston. Hilton Head as well, and then back to then Huntsville, and so we'll get to all that. But also, and you have Peachtree Design, but you also have Peachtree Home Furnishings, right? Peachtree Co.
Peachtree and Company.
Peachtree and Company. I was going to ask you that because I noticed on your Instagram you had done a video and you had introduced it as Peachtree Co. So I guess you can alternate. I wasn't sure if you intentionally left out calling it company.
Most of the time, it depends on how quickly I'm trying to say it.
Really?
Yes. But we do and company. It's all under a parent company.
Yep.
So,
It's just a brand.
It's just a brand.
Yeah. The same thing. Our Town Podcast. The parent company is the Our Town Company, LLC. And all the brands will fall under that. What are those? Whatever those end up being.
Yes.
So I do want to go back though. You just made this comment, and it made me think of when I was interviewing Amy from Huntsville City Lifestyle. I had mentioned to her we had talked about hiring, and I had told her in my profession it's very difficult to know what you're getting because you're just getting a resume. And yeah, you can pick up the phone and you might make some calls, but in the federal contracting space, people jump around a lot. Their bosses are gone, et cetera, and you likely will probably never come across someone. And sometimes people are afraid to give you feedback as if it's going to come back on them, and they're going to find out or whatnot. So it's hard to find out. Hey, was this person a really good database developer, or they were a really good network engineer? But I had mentioned to her that if you're in journalism and you're writing stuff, well, we all get to see your work. And if you have time, you would just go through and you would read that person's work. Now, in interior design, I don't know let's talk a little bit about what you're hiring for. Yes, you're the founder. You're the chief designer.
Yes.
I would assume all decisions go through you, and you're looking to hire a diligent, dedicated, loyal staff. But what are those things that are difficult? Because maybe in interior design, somebody could give you a photo of, hey, I did this stuff. Is it really their photo? Yeah. Or it's different maybe in journalism where you put your name on there, right? A newspaper or magazine published your stuff. But in interior design, how do you talk me through that process of what you've learned and how do you vet like whether or not that is authentic to that person?
Yes. So design is just an interesting field. And, we're a small company. Right now, I have been looking for another interior designer, someone with a few years experience under their belt, just because project load. I don't have the time right now to take on someone fresh out of school.
Yeah.
It's just a level of education that you get in the field that you don't come out of school with, which is a whole other aspect. But where I am right now, I can't take on someone that's going to require a whole lot of, outside of, hey, this is our process. So minimum was 2 years of experience. I did actually offer a girl the position, and she's great. So I can tell you what I asked of her to provide me. So I had her go through a phone screening. I have someone who works remotely for us that does all of our phone calls. And she did that first introduction. Knows nothing about design, which is part of why she does our phone calls.
Okay.
So she went based on her answers to our questions, her resume, and then if she thought that we would get along, because it is a small office. From there, I sent hey, would love to set up a interview, but first I want to see your portfolio.
Okay.
In the portfolio, depending on how far out of school someone is, normally a portfolio has some of their schoolwork, which is theirs. And that will be architectural drawings, renderings, just kind of a mood board. And then...
So when it's theirs because it's stamped with the school they went to, or there's something on the
because
paper.
they're giving you something that's got their name on it.
Right.
It's really hard to pull someone else's with some of those things because they're just marks of a design student versus someone who's, in the field. And then she also provided a couple of, pieces that she had done in previous jobs with the name of the company that she did it under. So that's all items that I can go back and check. Was she actually there during that time when this project was being developed? Things like that. Now, do I know for sure that she was the designer on that project? That's kind of I'm taking your word for it. But most designers don't want to put someone else's work. Someone who has truly put in the experience doesn't want to provide someone else's work because, it will be very apparent very quickly if that is not yours.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Just with the nature of our field, and then it's also just looking for, does their style match up with what our brand is? Do they have the experience of doing construction documents? Because those are all things that we do a fair amount of. So those are also kind of key things that I always ask for if someone's going to move to the next.
Is it important for you? I would assume in a portfolio you have a bath, a kitchen, living room, dining room. Like, is there a certain number and or type of room that you are definitely interested in seeing?
No, mostly because we have such a wide variety of projects that seeing a little bit of, right now we're bidding on some apartment complexes. So the fact that this girl has multifamily background was big for me. And she presented some documents from, some floor plans from that where I say floor plans, a rendered floor plan so that I could see kind of the full scale of her experience. And so with what I was looking for with this hire, seeing that was enough for me to say, okay, this girl has the experience that I want. We're going to move on. I can also say that we had quite a few people who, applied and their resume looks good. And then, they don't have the work to back it up, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But I'm just not in a place right now to take on those.
Yeah. So while we're kind of on the education topic, so you went to Auburn, and it just so happens Auburn is definitely in the top 17 of design schools that one could apply for.
Yes.
Number one was actually not in New York. I was kind of surprised. Well, all lists are somewhat subjective. It was actually, I think, was it in Charleston? But New York obviously is most of the top 10. Philadelphia. Interestingly, nothing west of Kansas. Mm-hmm. And even Kansas was like, Auburn's on there. It's probably the most extreme west of all and maybe Cincinnati, but we probably line up with Cincinnati on the longitude anyway. So Kansas is like, that's an interesting outlier. But Atlanta is strong, right? And of course, North Carolina and most of the design in the U.S. seems to be East Coast, Southeast, South, right? Base type stuff. You went to Auburn. Mm-hmm. That's great. But I also know that, hey, we live in a world of online, this and that. You can get a certificate. You can sometimes, unfortunately, probably pay money, never learn anything, and they give you a degree. That's unfortunately the society we live in. And I know that from people in my extended family that, paid money, never went to a class, and all of a sudden they were anointed a degree, which is a shame. But when you're looking at resumes, are you looking for always top school, a certain internship, at least a certificate, or does sometimes their portfolio just kind of shadow all of that and say, hey, maybe they didn't have a chance to go off and study? But talk me through that.
Right now, I was looking for someone with a 4-year degree from a design school. I got a lot of UNA.
Is that my phone?
It's probably mine.
It's okay. It's not mine.
It's probably mine.
It's okay.
I got a lot of UNA, Alabama. I think that most people with experience or with a degree, those were kind of the two that I was seeing the most, just in the area. And, it really just depends. The thing about someone who just gets a certificate is then they need a little more experience in the field to kind of match up with what a 4-year degree is teaching you.
Yeah.
So it varies, but I'm not at a place to teach someone who has no field experience how to do a drawing set.
Yeah.
How to, pull colors, how to scale things in to make sure that furniture is the right size.
Sure.
But I know some firms are willing to take that risk because they already have a larger team. My team, I just can't have someone designated to teach someone something that
you should already know.
A university will teach them, yes.
How many employees do you have?
So we just lost our junior designer. She's going to an architecture firm, which is why we're bringing someone new in. And then I've got 2 in the store. Okay. So it's a small little family.
Yeah. Early in my career, I used to think about degrees differently. Mm-hmm. And I certainly grew up in the late, you're seeing a little bit of this now, but in the mid to late 90s, and this is going to seem so long ago, but I think it is pertinent, like Windows 95, like everyone actually started to have a PC at their house, right? And it started to become like a commodity. They used to be extremely expensive, and they started coming down in price. And there was all of these commercials on, hey, do you want to make a ton of money? Do you want to make 80,000 a year, 90,000? I think those commercials started like 110, and over time it got down to like 70. But like, just come to computertraining.com and and you can get a job. So that seemed really appealing. But I remember some kind of mentor along the way was like, the value of a 4-year degree, though, and why you look at people with 4-year degree is sometimes it's not just about the subject matter or like the major. Mm-hmm. It's the fact that they went for 4 years. Yes. And then you even look into the quality of that, or even like master's, maybe not as much as a 4-year because you're going to assume it's 120 credits. But you get into like the master's programs, there's a very difference between an MBA that's 60 credits and one that's 34, and you start to like look at, okay, how much did this person really have to sacrifice? It's hard enough to go to college at most places, and you get sucked into the party scene. And are you going to wake up on time and go to class? What kind of, grades? And, did you struggle your freshman, sophomore year and figure it out? Did it take you 4 years or did it take you 6 years? Mm-hmm. Did it take you 3 years? And you learn a lot about people and how important and where do they put their priorities. And sometimes it's rare. And I think what I really love about your story, and not even really having talked to you about it, but just making an inference, you go to school 4 years. Looks like you had a decent upbringing. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about your swimming later, but then your thing says, I majored in interior design and my minor's in international studies, and off you go to Italy. Mm-hmm. So it's like you had a plan. To me, you would be the ideal candidate. I look at your resume and say, this girl, lady, young woman had a plan and she executed it. Mm-hmm. And she's doing that. And that doesn't mean that everybody has to do that. And there are exceptions. But I think there's a lot of times there's a tremendous value in and trying to put yourself in the place of someone who's at wherever they are in the country. Yes. And how persistent they were to ensure that they kept school as we tell our kids, your job is to go to school. All these other things you do in life, they're fine and wonderful, but your job is to go to school.
Yes.
And you can have a part-time job and you can do sports, but your upbringing is about going to school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for me, I know with an interior design degree, looking at someone who has that 4-year degree, I know that if we have a deadline, they know the work that it takes to get it done.
Yeah.
Because in design school, I mean, you're in studio for your 4-hour credit class, but I mean, it's all night in the studio trying to get things done. It's, I mean, I can't even tell you how many times we all ate dinner in the studio because we had a deadline, end of week, and we're all at the library at 2:00 in the morning, and the librarians know us by name, because we were in the, computer lab at all hours. And knowing that and knowing how it was, at least at Auburn, I make a fair assumption, especially just over the years talking to other designers who have gone through similar programs to what we did. It's pretty across the board because interior design, it's not just colors and furniture. Yeah. I mean, we are moving walls. We have to know ADA codes. We need to know, building codes in general. And so it's very much structured like an architecture program. Some design schools, it is basically architecture. And, we have licensing exams just like architecture does. Interior design, you have to have, depending on the state, you have to have passed a certain exam to be able to work in certain fields. So it's very, people don't think of that side of it. And so that's part of why I look for someone with a 4-year degree, is because they've got the dedication if they made it through the program.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. I would assume when you're in a 4-year degree program that you're going to take one, if not a couple courses in psychology. Mm-hmm. and like consumer behavior.
Yes.
And maybe on the design side, it's color psychology, and I don't know how people feel about wood versus tile versus just their moods and different things, where that might be missing if you are a fast-tracked certificate program or something where you realize that, and now you're a business owner, and I don't know if you took any sort of classes as far as general ed on accounting or just owning a business or something like that, but there's writing. Did you take a literature course? And now, or international studies helps you understand other cultures and why certain things. One question I know my wife has that we'll ask is, what is different about the South as far as style or preferences, right, in color and in furnishings and architecture. And I think architecture, like you can drive through neighborhoods and something doesn't fit. If someone has tried to attempt to put a Florida-based home in a colonial subdivision or something, and it's a beautiful home, it doesn't fit the neighborhood. Yes. And unfortunately, it's an eyesore. Now, you put that in Florida or down near the beach of Alabama, where it's like, oh yeah, there's the one levels, and that looks like a home that belongs in that climate, right, in that part of the country. But so can you talk about psychology and consumer behavior, if you will, and did you realize it at the time how important it was that you were taking courses in that and gaining education on that?
Yeah, so we actually had and I could not tell you what the name of the class was, but we had an interior design specific. There was a whole unit on just psychology, because especially, and I mean, it really, there's a little bit of psychology in every type of design. In a healthcare setting, you're not going to use certain colors because they make patients appear more ill, or, they're a little more depressing, things like that. Whereas in a home, certain colors you want to use in certain rooms. Blue in a dining room, it makes people slow down and eat less.
I've heard that.
But red is a high energy color. So if a dining room is red, then people are eating quickly and it's kind of an in and out, So something that I look at is, does this client host a lot? Do they like to sit and talk to their family? Because if so, then we're going to use a more calming color in certain rooms than if they maybe don't host a lot. The dining room is just kind of a room to them and they don't want people lingering. That might be a client that I say, do you like the color red? So it varies, but we did have a whole class, about how, certain colors affect mood. And then there's, especially in residential, which we do a lot of, there's a fair amount of, you end up being the therapist. Mm-hmm. You're in the middle of some of the marital disagreements.
And looking at it like someone trying to imagine having a color on the walls, has them open up and start telling you why they hate the color green.
Exactly.
Or whatever. And then all of a sudden, you might as well put them on the couch.
Yes. And then, we send out to all of our potential clients, we send out a questionnaire. And some of it is just the generic, what's your budget? What rooms are we looking at? And then some of it is, are there any colors you don't like? And we have recently changed it to where both spouses can fill it out, because we were having an issue with, the wife would say, I love purple. This didn't actually happen, but I love purple. And then her husband's like, I could not hate purple more. So, we have kind of come to that conclusion that it needs to be both sides, so that we don't have quite as much squabbling. Yeah. But we don't deal with it a lot. But
or they might say purple, you show them a shade like a lavender that's just not necessarily purple, and they're like, well, no, I told you I don't like purple. Like, well, that's lavender, or it's a different, so it surprises you that, or blue. Like blue is there's royal, there's navy, there's light, there's Carolina. I mean, there's all kinds of shades, right?
Yes.
So you have to get real specific. Okay, you hate blue, but let's dive into all 20 shades of blue.
Yes. And I have found down in Huntsville, most of our clients, when I give them that, don't like red and orange and yellow in their homes. And that's fine. My personal favorite colors in life in general are blues and greens. So I can do that all day long. We have a client who she loves black and white and gray, and and I'm having a lot of fun designing for that because
sure, it's different.
It's different. So
now, what about the idea that every color though has its opposite? Like blue can be, like green could be really great if it doesn't look like stagnant water. And there can be a very off-putting shade to a color. But have you seen that? I don't know, even whether it's your own preference and stuff that you've done, was it in school, your own homes, or with clients where it surprised you that they had a very unexpected reaction to a color that they thought they liked?
Not so much with color. Sometimes it's, I had one and she was so sweet. She's like, I love everything that you just laid out. She goes, I don't like the pattern of this tile. And she had something from her background where chevron, that chevron pattern, it had been overused in her life. And that was something that we never would have known if we hadn't set a chevron in front of her. And so we went back and pulled it, and then she's like, okay, now we're good.
Yeah.
Like, we're good to go now. But it's little things like that, because a lot of times I don't typically just say, do you like this table? I give them the full presentation, because maybe you don't like that table, but when you see what chairs it's going with, what lamp we're doing with it, the full picture of the room, then suddenly, no, I do actually like that table.
Yeah.
So, the longer that I have been doing this, the more the process has changed, and the way that we're doing things now, I'm finding is more successful than the way that we were doing things when I first started.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. I don't want to go back into your childhood just yet, but I do want to start at, we kind of talked about the fact that Auburn is ranked in the top 20, top 17, top 15 of design schools that one should choose or apply to.
When I was at Auburn, we were actually tied for number one
in
the country. It was us and SCAD.
Okay.
And my whole time at Auburn, we were tied for number one. So we've always been up, top 10, top 15. So
I only looked at one list. It's certainly not definitive. I figured there's a standard deviation there. Like, okay.
It goes, so every few years there is an accreditation program. It's called CIDA, CIDA, and they poll firms that are hiring new hires, firms that get interns. They poll the students themselves. They come in and look at if each university is meeting the criteria that they're supposed to, and their ranking goes off of how firms are feeling about the readiness of the designers coming out of the programs, and then what they're seeing being taught within the schools. And so there's a little bit of a shift, just because a lot of that is very, they pull enough people, but some of it is, maybe you get one bad student out. And so that there's a little bit of a shift, but they don't do it every year.
Okay.
They do it maybe every other year, and then the poll comes out the following year. So, there's some room for movement over time. But
Well, War Eagle.
War
because,
Eagle.
part of the fun of this, I've been doing the podcast almost a year. And in fact, this will post, I think, the last Wednesday of March.
Okay.
And I have a merch store open through, shout out to Apparel Lab, they're a local company. And we have a store that just opened yesterday. It'll close on the 31st of March. I'll do some separate clips from this episode to promote that, but certainly by the time this airs, there'll be a couple days left. So hurry up and get your merch. We've got T-shirts, long sleeve shirts, hoodies, a couple hats, and a tumbler, right? Yeah, with the logo on it. The two styles of logo. But let me ask this question. And let's keep it to just what other schools you thought of applying to, and was it always Auburn? Because you're in Alabama now, but you weren't, and there may have been a stigma being in Georgia.
Yes.
Damn those Bulldogs, right? I've got two nieces that just graduated from Georgia, but then ultimately, and then what was it about Auburn's program that you were like, I've got to do this?
So my parents are Auburn alumni.
Oh, are they?
Yes.
Okay.
My mom, my dad, and my stepdad are all Auburn grads. So, and then because of that, everyone that I grew up around is an Auburn grad. So growing up in Georgia, I was just the lone wolf where I just always had orange and blue on and everyone else was barking.
I like that. That wasn't what I was expecting in the answer. This is good.
And, I grew up going to Auburn football games. I grew up going on campus. When it came time to apply to schools, I was swimming competitively, and I actually was looking at swimming. And it came down to, do you want to go to a design school or do you want to swim in college?
Mm-hmm.
And
Auburn has a really good swimming program too.
They do. I am just under 5'3".
Yeah.
Most swimmers at that D1 level are, tall and just a little bit faster than me, and that's but I chose going and doing what I wanted career-wise to follow. And Auburn's program, I went and sat down with the dean of the human sciences when I was looking at schools, and she told me, which was a little disheartening to my, young self, she told me that the interior design program at Auburn gets 300 applicants a year, and they take 30.
Oh, wow.
And so when I got into Auburn, I was like, I've got to find a backup plan just in case, because our program at the time, they've changed it now, but at the time you applied going into school. So my portfolio going in was all of my art from my high school classes. And, I had to write an essay on why this is what I wanted to do. And I cannot even tell you how surprised I was that I got in. Just because, when you hear how many people apply a year, you're like, it's not great odds. But so I applied for Georgia. I got into South Carolina. I was offered a swim scholarship to a small D3 school. I applied for Vandy. And when it came down to it, when I got that Auburn acceptance, I'm like, it doesn't matter where else I get in, because this is where I wanted to go. And I just couldn't see myself, especially some of those other SEC schools, I couldn't see myself cheering against the team that I had grown up cheering for. So that was a very large factor of, my decision, but it just helped a lot that they had the good program.
About a 4-hour drive from where you were in Atlanta?
No, it's only an hour and a half, 2
That's
hours.
It?
Mm-hmm. It's much farther from here.
Okay.
So I could pop home for the weekend. It was just far enough away that
just have to go into a different time zone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
So it is. But my parents came over and visited a lot, and they were always there for a few football games, and my mom always made a point to come over for my birthday and things like that. So
now, were there other subjects that you were really strong in that you enjoyed in school, or you're just kind of a heads down, I'm an interior designer and I'm struggling through English and math, etc.?
Math is not my strong point. My husband is an engineer, so he handles math in our household. But I
wait till he gets to them asking about the Algebra 2 trig homework.
I know. I'm like, don't ask me, ask him. I had my backup plan was originally to do some sort of English or public relations or something like that. I was actually in high school in AP English classes. I love to read. I love literature. And so that was kind of my backup plan and a strong suit. So
with your busyness, right, with your 3 boys, all under the age of 5, are you able to pick up and read books just to have some me time?
Right now, I listen to a lot of audiobooks, but I am in a book club in Huntsville. And so I make a point, if I can't read anything else in a month, I make a point to try to at least finish that one. But that has been a good for me to have a book to, listen to, read, so that if I'm having a stressful day, I can step back and just get lost in another world for a little bit.
Do you compound that by, you also said that you run and you run some half marathons. Are you listening to the book while running?
Typically, yes. Okay. I'm not running right now. I had ACL surgery in November, and so I'm still very much in recovery from that, which is mentally, when you are used to running, it's hard when that's your kind of, I'm having a bad day, I'm just going to pop in my headphones and go. And that has not been doable lately. So mostly it's just putting in the headphones and stress cleaning.
My wife is a voracious reader. She likes to read.
She's probably reading right now, yeah.
We'll have to discuss what you're reading later, because
she reads all kinds of stuff. And just I was more of an audiobook person. I used to have much longer commutes than I have now. And I kind of missed that. I would get to the point where sometimes I couldn't do the mystery novel because, every writer has a style, every genre has a style. And I'm like, okay, I could probably skip the whole middle of the book. I just want to get to the end and find who done it.
Yes.
Because sometimes I get bored with the plot lines and they try to build a character and you're like, and it's okay. Maybe you can really appreciate how the author did that, but it's like, I get it. I already figured out who's of the two are probably going to be suspicious, right? Of being the suspect or whatever. So
yeah, I like the ease of an audiobook. But my big thing is that when I'm reading and you're invested in a character, I am very guilty of flipping to the end to find out if they die or not. And so I can't do that with an audiobook, which makes me, sit and have to focus on what's happening in it. But I do like my in-hand copy so that I can kind of be like, okay.
So even if you spoil the ending, do you still go back and read the book?
Absolutely. Okay. Yes. Yeah, I do. So
I sometimes, I haven't done it a lot, but sometimes on like when we binge watch a series, I'll be like, okay, I just need to know like something. And I might go on the internet and look at like, if we're in season 1, like I might look at season 4
My husband,
just to see like what might be happening in the plots.
I drive my husband nuts because I do that a lot. What were we watching? We were watching Jack Reacher. Have you watched that yet?
The newest one? Is there an
The newest season is
Yeah,
season 2.
Oh yeah, with what's
season 2?
John
No,
Krasinski.
season 3. Yes.
Yeah.
And I was looking. I was like, we were done, and I'm like, when is the next season coming out? He's like, why does this matter right now? I'm like, because I need to know.
I tell you, I was very. Wendy will remember this when Downton Abbey. I can't remember what it was like, season 3 or season 4. I couldn't wait, and it was like 6 months away, and it was like on my mind. I couldn't get it off my mind, and it was like the year just was taking this slow roll.
Yes.
Like, can we just get to season 3 already? I'm excited for this show.
I watched a few seasons of Downton, and I loved it, and then it's been far enough out that I can.
Oh yeah,
And then there was a character that I loved that they killed off, and
was that one of the husbands or the to Lady Mary?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When they killed him off, I couldn't get back.
Yeah.
I was so upset about it. I know he went on to bigger and better things, but I was so upset about how they killed off his character that I just.
You know what I'm amazed about? There's a lot of British actors who come over and do American shows, and if you didn't know they were British, you would never know, right? Because they just are flawless. Yet Americans, we're not so good at faking a British accent.
Terrible.
And there's plenty that have tried, or a Scottish accent or something. And for other than like a Mike Myers, I think he can get away with it. But like, there's tons of them.
Yes.
That we were watching The Good Doctor, and Freddie Highmore is British, and I think she's off the show now. But Dr. Brown was British, and I'm just, and you know, you think about the different inflections in their voices, and sometimes they have to yell, and sometimes they have to whisper, and it's not like it ever comes out. And of course they can edit, but they're just really good at it. And I was thinking, there's no Americans that can nail that. Some other accent.
Yeah, I can't think of any.
Where you would fool that whole country. You know.
No. I will say some British actors, though, you can tell on certain words.
Really? Or it's like spotting a Canadian.
Yeah.
They drop that A. There's certain words like, oh, they must be from Canada.
Ryan Reynolds is one that, you know, I don't think I realized he was Canadian until.
He slipped up?
Yes.
Yeah.
But
So I want to hear about, talk me through this is like an interview question, the most kind of complex project you did at Auburn. And I really want to hear the full gamut of complexity and stuff that went into you know what you and a small team did. You're all right.
Sorry about that. So we had, let's see, from our junior and senior year, we had like focused classes. So we had a hospitality class. We had a healthcare class. And healthcare was probably one of the more complicated, you know, and you're learning some of the planning methods, how to use a bubble chart in design. You know, you think of a bubble chart in one way, but the way that a designer uses it is very different. And so learning all of those things. But for our healthcare project, we had to do all of the building codes, ADA, making sure that everything was, you know, meeting regulation that you have to have in the real world for a whole hospital.
Wow.
Now we were on a team of 4 of us. And then at the end, we had to each pick a section of our hospital that we wanted to focus in on. So I did a children's unit. But it was just the whole process because a hospital is multiple floors.
Yeah.
It's a lot of building codes to have to consider, and everything has to be accessible.
Let me ask you this, and this is just my own. The light bulb was going off in my mind because when I think of interior design, I think too much. I think decorating,
Yes.
making it pretty. I think what you're describing is if you just had a shell, what are the doors? How high do the handles have to
Yep.
be? Do they have to have windows?
Yes.
And if there's a half wall, how high? That kind of railings. Right? You're designing the bathroom and all of that. Like
Yes.
every material that's going to get. That's okay. All right, I'm tracking.
Yes. And that's, my husband likes to tease me and call me a decorator, and he likes to see the color that my face turns when he says that, oh, this is my wife, the interior decorator. He likes to see how upset it makes me because
Here, go look at the camera and give that face.
I can't do it. He's the only one that can pull that out of me. But it's a lot of,
Okay.
and that's why the design field has its own registration and code.
Like building codes?
Well, so we have to pass
like a regulatory compliance thing?
Yes. And so not like in multifamily, you have to, typically you have an architect on the project. So having a registered interior designer on it isn't as big of a deal. But with things like healthcare, there needs to be a registered interior designer on the project, making sure that everything is up to code. I'm in the process of sitting for that exam, and it is every possible, you've got to learn about the healthcare codes. You've got to learn about the commercial codes, the residential codes, all of it. And I've been in residential for, I started out in multifamily. I briefly did commercial design, and now we are primarily residential, trying to get back into the multifamily world a little bit more. And so, relearning everything, 10 years after school has been.
So that was the project. Basically, you have a small team, you have a hospital of a certain size, number of floors, whatever, surgical units, triage units, waiting area, all of that.
And we didn't have to space plan for or do furniture plans for every unit. That was why they had us pick one that we individually focused on.
Okay.
But for life safety plans, how everyone's going to get out of the hospital if there's an emergency, things like that. It's things that you don't think of when you think of a hospital, but there's a lot of planning that goes into it.
Sure.
I mean, with anything, if I'm doing a new build home and there's only one exit, I've got to find somewhere else that there's a second exit out of that house, because if there's a fire, that front door is not necessarily the best place for everyone to get out. So, and the state of Alabama is actually leading the for getting designers registered, which you wouldn't think of, but Alabama is the forefront of getting the legislature through and things like that. So
I love our state.
I know. Isn't it great?
It is. So now let's say you graduate and this internship opportunity, you study abroad. So when you went to Italy, was that a part of Auburn, your program?
Yes.
Okay.
So interior design at Auburn is in the College of Human Sciences. So they have set up a program in Aricia, Italy, which is about an hour outside of Rome. And if you are in the College of Human Sciences and you study abroad, you get a minor. And it was 3 months in Italy. You know, we were in classes 2 days a week. We were on excursions seeing what we, had learned about the other 2 days. And then we had Friday through Sunday to explore, Europe pretty much. We could go on trips. We could stay in Rome. I don't think I spent a single weekend just staying in Rome. I went and just explored.
So that was your international studies certificate?
Yes. I also took
minor, sorry.
Yes.
Minor.
I also took Italian in college. It's one of those countries that I'd always wanted to go to and immerse myself in. I mean, the food alone makes it.
Yeah.
But in design, you've got Milan there, you've got Rome. It's just a wonderful place.
I think this would be a perfect time to give 2 plugs. One to Joe Moore and to Torres over in Hampton Cove where you live.
Yes.
And then Joe Carlucci over here at Valentina's Pizzeria and Wine Bar.
Yes.
And I haven't had to Torres yet. But I'll tell you what, I've had enough pizza in my life. Nothing compares to Valentina's. That pizza is so good.
I have not been over there yet. I need to.
Yes, you do.
I need to. I love good pizza. But yeah, we go to Tortores a lot because it's right outside of our neighborhood. So,
let me set up a question my wife has for you by asking, but when I'm asking a food trend, there's a food trend now with hot honey, it seems, and with pizza, where you have some pepper and some spice in the honey, and then they put it on. It's really good. Hopefully not too spicy, right? I mean, you can control that. And Wendy made some for us, a homemade recipe, right, last night.
Made
Hot honey. It's like this thing.
I haven't heard of this.
You haven't?
No.
So let's just I want to talk about trends.
Yes.
Right now, and then I want to come back to your career, but just while it's kind of fresh in my mind and before I forget, what was the trend last year that was dominant, and then what is the trend for 2023?
So,
and I know that's a very broad question, but if you want to just narrow down, what do you think is the hottest thing in your business last year and this year?
So this year we are getting a lot more, and I think that some of this, it's very area dependent, specific.
Yeah.
But we are getting so many people in from different states. I am getting a lot of requests for more modern homes. Not super straight lines, kind of modern, but not a lot of color, a lot of blacks and whites and grays. And then we do a lot of kind of Scandinavian design right now.
Whoa.
Which is just very neutrals and relying a little more on textures for the interest in a space. Last year, and I think that it has there is a whole, branch of people who focus on what the trends are going to be, and clothing fashion typically tracks about 2 to 3 years ahead of the home trends. But 2020 did some crazy things to the design world, just, everyone. But 2020, last year, they said that as our Sherwin-Williams rep put it, the granny chic has come in.
Okay.
Because people being at home and away from their families, they want that nostalgia again in their homes. So you're seeing a lot of patterns that are what you would, and it's a certain generation specifically that is looking at these, but it's the patterns that remind you of your grandmother basically. I'm not doing a lot of them. I'm not getting requests for a lot of them, but
Thank goodness. All right.
but it's a trend that they don't think it's going to be a long trend. But I will say that I go to Atlanta Market, and then when I can, I go to High Point. High Point being the bigger show on this side of the country.
Yep.
And fall, and then summer Atlanta Mart, and then this past January, I've definitely seen some more.
Actually, there it is right there.
Yes.
Dallas has one, Atlanta, and what was just this past January, right?
Yes.
You went to that, and then High Point's down at what, 8?
High Point will be in April, and then they always do one in
down at 17 is the other one.
Yes. Ooh, that's good to know, because normally High Point interlaps with our oldest son's birthday, and I can't go.
Oh, really?
But yeah, we normally go to Atlanta because it's right here. It's a smaller show, but all of my reps are always there. And so I know that I can get in and get things done that I need to. But yeah, I definitely saw a lot more like chairs with kind of those big floral prints and things like this time than I have, in years past. And like I said, I think it's probably a flash in the pan kind of a trend, but
I wonder if what will trail that is names that little girls don't get named, like Agatha that much anymore, or Gertrude, or like maybe some names that we like, oh, that's a grandma name. My grandma's name was Alice. That's not necessarily completely unpopular, but it's not that common.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking Lois, I don't see a lot of kids running around their name Lois. There's like maybe that will come back around as well.
Maybe the name that I'm hearing for girls, I've got 2 friends who have little girls named Lucy.
Okay. Yeah.
And that was one that I hadn't heard a lot. And then within a couple months, I had 2 friends name their daughters Lucy. So we keep it short and sweet with our kids' names.
Yeah. What's their names?
We've got a Luke, Blake, and then Max.
Luke, Blake, and Max. Okay.
So 3 little boys.
Yeah. Actually, let's just be topical here, because now, is this your oh, there we go. I was going to bring this up. Is this your father? Or
So this is my stepdad.
Your stepdad. Okay.
And he actually adopted me when I was in the 5th grade.
Okay.
So my maiden name is his last name.
Okay. All right. I just had that queued up, and I was going to ask you about it.
Yes.
And that's kind of cool that you're showing. You're probably, what, 6 there?
I was in the 1st grade.
Yeah.
So, 1st grade. So
6 years old.
6.
You can usually tell by the tooth is missing.
The front tooth, yes.
Yeah. And there's no shame, because everyone in your class, hold on, I don't want to go there yet. There's some of your boys at Halloween.
Yes.
Well, okay. We're going to go through a picture pack here.
Yes.
For those who are listening, I've got some pictures of her family, and then we'll come back to the career side. But this is, I presume, after a deployment.
Yes. So my husband was actually deployed during the COVID crisis.
Wow.
So he deployed our middle, who I am holding there, was 6 months when he deployed, and that was January 2020. And he was supposed to be home by end of March 2020.
Oh.
And they got pushed back almost 3 months. It was 5 months, but it was 5 months. It was not. He got back right before our middle one turned 1. And he was supposed to be back much sooner than that, but that was our welcome home. And
you're at the hangar.
Yes,
at the base.
We're at the hangar at the base.
And then where did you go?
He was in Al Udeid, so in the Middle East.
Okay. All right.
But yes.
There's Luke and Blake.
Yes.
And
Blake,
then Blake does not look happy to be in this picture. He's like, I'm not looking.
I know. He was at the age that Max is now, where it's just like he's figured out crawling and doesn't want to be.
Now he's fast forwarding. Oh, now there's a Max in the picture. And
Yes.
This is, I guess, last Halloween.
Yes.
And it's nice to see that Batman and Spider-Man still rule.
Yes.
After all these years.
After all these years, yep.
But Max is a tree?
No, he was an avocado.
Avocado.
It had a pit and everything.
I see. I was looking at the trunk
The
and a
hat,
leaf, and I'm
yes.
like, I don't know, is he a tree?
I know. My mom actually found that.
That's
and
hilarious.
She was like, I got this for him. Do you want him to be an avocado? And I was like, I really haven't thought about Halloween yet. So sure, that works.
That's definitely, when it comes to food, avocados are strong
Yes.
right now.
Yes. Well, that's all three of our kids. That's been one of their first foods. I don't know why that is.
You
And
know
it's still their one of their favorites.
I don't know if I'm a weirdo, but I prefer just an avocado over guacamole, even though guacamole is the main component. I just rather have the avocado.
So I'm the other way around.
Yeah.
But I do like an avocado on thing, or like in a salad or something. But
All right, this is the birthday cake I want to ask about, and every time I ask this question, it's usually, well, we got it at Publix, unless we have a cake maker.
We actually have a family friend that
Ooh.
has made almost all of my cakes. She has been making my cakes since I was 2.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And so now she's made almost all of our kids' cakes. She's not going to be making the one for Max's first birthday, but that's...
And she's making them in Georgia and bringing them here?
My mom, since my parents are still in Atlanta, they normally pick them up and bring them over. But,
Wow.
Yep. So...
And then this was a...
Daniel Tiger.
Daniel Tiger.
Yes. So it is a PBS kids show created by the... Mr. Rogers Foundation, Fred
cool.
Rogers Foundation.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of the same characters, where the characters that we know from Mr. Rogers now have their kids teaching the same lessons. So
That's what happens when you get older, right?
I know.
And generations pass. Like, I tell you what, that was I watched a lot of PBS growing up, and I watched Three's Company, which was like they were like investigators, and there was the Bloodhound Gang as part of Three's Company, and then Sesame Street, of course, and Mr. Rogers, and then that is like an indelible impression in my head, in my mind. And I can't remember. Here's just a cool picture of the boy. This says, how old is Max in this shot? 2 months, 3 months older?
that was his newborn pictures. So
Oh, really?
He was maybe a week old.
Okay.
And I wasn't sure that we were going to get newborn pictures for him because we had moved, our other 2 were both born in Atlanta. And I had actually a client who was a photographer. And so we kind of swapped services, and she did all of my kids' photography. But us being in Huntsville, that couldn't work out. And so my husband and I, the week before, my mom had the big boys because it was spring break that I was due with Max. And we were on a walk and ran into someone in our neighborhood who does newborn photography. And so she squeezed us in. She's actually done some photography for our for the interior design firm now too.
Wow.
But yeah, it was just one of those chance meetings, and it worked out great, and it's been a good relationship that we just stumbled upon. So.
Good. Yeah, literally.
Yes.
It's a good thing you went on that walk.
I know. So.
All right, and I think the next shot's the family shot. No, it's not. It's you and your husband, I guess. Skiing or snowboarding?
That's...
Or is that not you?
Not us.
All right. You know what's really funny? So on Instagram is funny because the only way you can download stuff is you have to go to Inspect Element.
Okay.
And you go to Sources. But the weird thing is, and I think I know what that is now, it will mix, like, it's not necessarily like that. Like I'm on your page, but it almost like it keeps in memory all the other photos that I've
Found.
I found or other people's. And so you'll sometimes have to scroll, and then And in that case, I'm like, well, is that them? I don't know. I'm gonna ask. But okay.
I've never been skiing before.
Oh, really?
Mm-mm. Or snowboarding.
Well, it's not necessarily. I mean, I guess there's a resort in Southwest Georgia. I think, right?
Yes, and they probably blow snow.
Yeah.
And then in North Carolina they blow snow. But we actually went on a trip the weekend before ski season. Blake was 4 months old, and we were trying to get in a trip before my husband deployed, and we went out to Utah, Salt Lake,
Brighton.
no, Park City.
Yeah.
And we went out there for a couple days, kid free, and but we didn't ski because ski season hadn't started yet, so we just got to see. We got to see as they were blowing all of the snow, which was kind of a cool experience. And then in Park City, they've got a hotel that does a sabering, like a champagne sabering at sunset every night.
Oh, wow.
And so we went up there and watched sunset at the top of the mountain. It was a lot of fun.
That's
so
cool.
It was a fun trip.
I grew up on the other side of that mountain. I grew up in the shadows of where is a big Cottonwood Canyon that has Brighton and Solitude, and Little Cottonwood Canyon has Snowbird and Alta. But we were too poor. Like I could see the mountain, could see the canyon. Never even crossed my mind that we were going to ever go skiing because we just didn't have the money.
Yeah.
So I would ski later in life and come back and get to do that stuff.
Yeah, my mother-in-law, one of her best friends, has a house or a condo in Park City, so we went and stayed there. But it was fun. We just spent the days walking around and enjoying.
Sure.
Did
you go over to Winter Park when they had the Olympics and saw like the ski jump and all that?
No, we really didn't venture out much. We just we went to I went to my first time at the Rocky Horror Picture Show there. They were doing a showing of it. We went shopping, just enjoyed food and just hung out for a few days. So
sure.
Yeah, which was, in hindsight, it was a good thing because there really hasn't been an opportunity in the last few years to travel like that, and definitely not kid-free. So
now let's talk about some of your achievements.
Okay.
I think we have to touch on the swimming thing.
Okay.
It's interesting because when I asked, I send all the guests the same questions to answer. And then I use them or I don't use them, or I'll take tangents off of them. But you had mentioned that you were a runner. Like I asked what hobbies, like, I'm into running. I've done these half marathons and, I'm busy with these boys. There was nothing about swimming. And I won't reveal my research methods.
I was wondering if you were going to stumble upon my
But
swimming.
I did. It wasn't easy. Does your mom play tennis?
She does.
Yeah. So I don't know if I should admit this, but you do include your maiden name in your Instagram.
I do.
And if I didn't have that, sometimes I'll have to poke around because I want to I genuinely enjoy the process of research. I don't want to know everything. I want to stumble upon it. And so I came across, I figured out where you were. Midland, Georgia. Or was it Midtown? Midland? What high school did you go
I went to Milton.
Milton, sorry.
Yes.
I knew it started with an M. So I'm like, okay, there's Milton, Georgia. Oh, there's this, her Brenda? What's your
Betsy?
Betsy,
Yes.
sorry. Starts with a B.
Yes.
Betsy Fester, and she plays tennis. Like, oh, okay. Now I'm into, okay.
Now you're in the deep
I'm
dive.
into Milton.
Yes.
Didn't find your yearbook or anything like that because I probably had to pay for it. Sometimes that stuff is free and sometimes you have to pay for it type thing. And that's weird. And then I would spend all day just looking through your yearbook because it's just fun to go back at different generations and look at the fashion and whatever and the cars and stuff. But so I stumble upon but you did on your LinkedIn you're a swim instructor. So someone could easily take the leap of saying, well, she must have been a swimmer.
Yes.
So here I just want to pull up this is from, let's see here. This is a little bit hard to read, but let me go all the way up to the top. I'm going to try to make it bigger. But I believe this is the state championships. Okay. And let me just do a easy thing here where I've got your name ready to go with Fester. And there you are. This is your 9th grade year. And this is in preliminaries of the 200-yard free.
Yes.
Now, do you remember this kind of stuff? Like, are you the type of athlete that you lie awake and think about your glory years and what you could have done better in the pool or something? Or because some people, they just seem to have like removed it from their memory.
No, it's one of those things, I loved swimming. Actually, my dad and my coach had at some point a conversation. And my coach was like, she's really little, but she's one of the only kids in the pool that truly just has a passion for the sport. And, I taught 11 years of swimming to kids. Trying to teach my own is something that's just a beast of its own.
Mom, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I get that a lot. And I, I look very fondly on my time swimming. My junior and senior year, if you were to find those, I was in.
Let's see here. There you are, 12th grade. I don't know what B final means. There was an A final.
So B is...
This is the medley.
Yeah, so they do two... So A finals would have been like the top 10, and then B is the top, or the 10 or 11 to 20.
Okay.
Or I guess it's 6 out of 16, so we finished 9th out of,
And you were the first leg.
I was the first leg. So that one was the medley. I was a backstroker. So backstroke is the first stroke in the medley relay. So I always started out and...
Then it goes breaststroke, then fly?
It's, oh geez, hold on. Well, I'm going to look because... Yes. So backstroke, breaststroke, butterfly, freestyle. And I'm looking because I know which girls up there were better at which strokes.
Like Kate Brandis.
Yes. Kate actually swam at Tech.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I believe that year I made finals for backstroke. But yeah, I loved it. I did.
Here's another year, but let's see.
Oh, that was my senior year.
Yeah, your senior year, and this is your finished 25th in the prelims.
For which?
Let's see. This is for
probably...
back 100 back. So is that
you know what? I had knee surgery before my senior year. That's why. Clearly, I have issues with my knees. But
so is back something that a shorter person can excel at? Or they push you towards?
No, it's just what I enjoyed. With backstroke, I did a lot of training to get my start right, so that I could start kind of get myself ahead with how far I could get in that starting. And then I did, in addition to practicing 6 days a week, plus in the summer we did doubles. And then I was weight training on top of that. So I was
exhausted.
Tiny and strong in high school, but I was up against girls that were 5'10", 5'11". I mean, 5'10" is kind of the average height for a backstroker.
Okay.
And in the Olympic world, and so at my height, being up against girls who truly went on to swim in the Olympics or trials or swim in college, I had to do everything I could to compete be in a competitive field with all of them. But yeah.
So here's a natural question from that. And
Yes.
I think everyone always tries to use their sports to life's lessons, you know. So how much has that helped you as a businesswoman and an owner, and to say, okay, I don't know if there are people, Joe Carlucci, for example, is very upfront in the interviews I've done with him where he's like, yeah, people will just tell me to my face, I'm going to fail. Like my friends in the community that just have the gall or just like don't realize what they're saying to someone. Like, oh, how long do you think you're going to be open before you go bankrupt or, your business fails? I don't know if you have any negative influences like that in your life. Like, well, what are you doing, Carolyn? This is ridiculous. And you should just be a mother and stay at home or get some other job. And, do you channel then that kind of like, I'm the 5'3" backstroker and I belong, and not only am I belong, I'm going to win.
I'm very competitive. So I found out swimming taught me that about myself. And my mom is very competitive too, although my dad and I laugh because she's like, I'm not competitive. We're like, you are. You're very competitive. So I think growing up with that, and both of my parents are actually business owners.
Okay.
They have both now retired, but my mom is a speech pathologist. She did private practice. When I was growing up, when I was little, she was at one of the hospitals doing speech therapy, and then she went off on my own when she had my brother. And then my dad owned a dental practice. Or my stepdad owned a dental practice, and my father started his own tech company. So I have some of that where they, if I have business questions, I've got people in my corner that can help answer them. But I found out, I will never forget it. I had one swim meet where my coach was like, he said something to me that was along the lines of like, well, you finished 9th for prelims, going into finals, like, I'm not even going to bother watching because you're not going to win. And
wow,
that he was one, he could key in on what would like drive you, even if you didn't know it about yourself. So telling me that he didn't think I was going to succeed lit a fire under me, and ended up swimming one of my fastest times and winning because I was so annoyed that he didn't think I could do it. And so I've discovered that about myself, that if someone doesn't think that I'm going to succeed, I'm just going to put my head down and work harder. So in business, I don't have a ton. Mostly if people don't think that I'm going to go far, then they don't make comments at all. And that's fine. I have gotten some comments about, why would you do this now with, 3 little kids? And that just, I want my boys to see that they can follow any dream that they have. And having kids is not a barrier.
Right.
It gives you a why on why you're doing this. Why do I get up and work hard every day? So that they can see me doing that. And because I love it. I love what I'm doing. I love my clients. I love the
And how
industry.
cool is it? There's a picture. I don't have it. I have other pictures loaded here from your storefront. And there's a picture of them kind of looking through the windows. And they have to just be, even though if they don't fully understand, immensely proud, or, hey, this is my mom's work.
Yes.
Right? Like I worked in an industry where my kids could never come to work. Top secret facility, never going to have family day. Sorry. That's, other people do family day. We don't.
Yeah.
Once a year, there might be some sort of thing that you get to see the cafeteria, you get to see the foyer and some other stuff. But but the question or the reality is we don't really want you there, right? We don't want anybody who doesn't have access. So how cool is it to be able to share that with your kids, and hopefully they're excited, and it's kind of that home away from home, or where mommy goes to work, right?
They Stovehouse is where our studio and our store are, and it is just a great community.
There's a shot of the
yes,
outside.
That's the outside of the furnishing store, and I mean, the baby is with me every day.
Yeah.
We joke and say he's our studio baby. He started crawling there. If I'm in the store with him, people will actually come in just because we have a baby in the store. And there are down Gaslight Alley, there are a lot of women entrepreneurs that are owning those businesses with kids.
Yeah.
Erica, who owns Noella's, she's got little Charlie Rose in there every day with her too. So Charlie and Max are best buds. But yeah, I mean, it's a great community. I love that I can take my kids with me. If I've got to be in the store on the weekend, the boys don't think of Stovehouse as like a food court and a shopping area. They think of it as mom's work. And so our middle one, he just is constantly like, are we going to mom's work today? If we turn, a certain way out of the parking lot, even from school, he's like, oh, are we going to watch a movie or listen to music at mom's work? I'm like, yeah, that's what we're doing. No, that's not what we're doing. But they enjoy it. Everyone there knows them, which is comforting because having active boys, being able to send them outside into just the breezeway to run around. I've got, several sets of eyes that are watching too, even if I don't ask them to. I know that they know how far down they're allowed to go. And that's based on, if someone is like, if Noella's isn't open, then they're not allowed to run down to Noella's. They have to stop at the vessel, like things like that. But yeah, it's a great community, and I think that it's almost all either women-owned businesses or a husband-wife couple for owners, and that's just wonderful. You don't see that much. And then Stovehouse is owned by a husband and a wife, and it's just an amazing place, and they're so supportive of entrepreneurs, and you know.
Let's go back to the picture. So let's talk about the company name, which came from your husband.
Yes.
There's the logo, but of course it's in it's not in your natural color set. Is he from Georgia?
We are both from different areas of the Atlanta area, but yes.
Was he closer to Peachtree City? Is that what inspired this?
No. So in Atlanta, Peachtree is just everywhere.
Yeah.
It's kind of the joke that there are 20 different peach trees in Atlanta. And so when I was trying to come up with, he's the one who encouraged me to go off on my own. I had been in the industry for about 3 years. And he was like, why don't you just...
And you were just doing the design side.
Yes. Well, I started out at a multifamily firm, and I really liked it, but the workplace environment wasn't a good fit. But I loved the work, and I loved working with my clients. Then I went to a commercial firm, and I was pretty much just doing construction drawings all day, which, that's a great fit for some designers. It's not a good fit for me. And so, at the end, was like, okay, I've got to go do something else. And my husband was like, why don't you just start your own? And so when we were trying to come up with names, we were engaged, so I didn't want to do Kimbro, anything. My maiden name, I love the history behind it, but I don't. in the design field, I don't feel like Fester was a great, was
not the best match.
Not the best match. So we started spitballing other things, and my husband's like, is there a Peachtree interior design firm at all? And there wasn't, which in Atlanta is a huge surprise. And so, it stuck. And
because the Rocket City thing is used a lot. Yellowhammer's used a lot.
It is.
And, Peachtree's still south.
It is. And, I started Peachtree in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And so when we moved to Huntsville, bringing that little piece of home with us, and then it's just a good talking point.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
people see Peachtree and they remember Peachtree, but they also just they stop and they ask, where'd it come from?
Mm-hmm.
Are you from Atlanta? Yes.
And then from like the market research that you did, you started in Atlanta, you bring it to Huntsville. True or false? Huntsville is somewhat lacking in home decor, retail space, furnishing space.
So interior design is for some reason, with how much Huntsville is growing, in the design world, it is a very underserved market. So there are a few design firms, a lot is not the right word. There are a few architecture firms that focus more on commercial.
Mm-hmm.
There are not a lot of residential firms or smaller interior design firms that take on any kind of commercial or anything like that. It's a very underserved market for how large Huntsville has become.
Yeah.
So when we moved here, I kind of gave myself about 2 months before I really started marketing in Huntsville, and we have been busy.
Yeah. Here's a testimonial. She took the time to make selections that matched our existing furnishings and personalities. She has an extremely keen eye for color and style. My husband and I feel as if our home of 35 years is brand new. And then this was your grand opening.
Yes.
On September 30th. I think your soft opening was the beginning of September.
Our soft opening was the beginning of September because, Peachtree Company is a brand new side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Peachtree Interior Design will have been in business for 7 years this summer, and Peachtree Company will be 1 in September. So knowing that and knowing that we did not come into Huntsville with a big following the way some of, our neighbors at Stovehouse did, I got the buzz going with our soft opening. And then we did our grand opening at the end of the month after we had time to work out some of the just the hiccups of a new business. So,
and you were doing appointments for people who wanted to come in. Was this a COVID thing or
no? This is new for the store.
Okay.
So the store's hours are Tuesday through Saturday from 10 to 6, and we have started because I'm already in the studio on Mondays. We get a lot of people that come in and they love the furniture, but maybe they don't like the chairs that we have on the floor. We can order just about anything. For, if y'all were looking for a bed, well, we don't have the room for a full, bedroom suit to be in the store, but we can order it. So we have started doing by appointment only time slots on Sunday afternoons and then Mondays. And that is for, maybe you don't want to do a full project for your home, but you need a couple of items to finish it off. And you don't want to go through the, I'm going to go here and here and here and here. So we can handle kind of the picking of everything and then the ordering and getting it. You can either have it sent to our store and do pickup there, or we can have it sent and white glove delivered.
And are they bringing pictures to you of the spaces that they're trying to?
Typically, so we have a Calendly calendar because that links with my calendar. And in that, I have the question of what room are you looking at? What pieces are you looking at? What styles are you looking at? Send me anything that maybe you have in mind. And that way I can have a few things pulled. And then upon talking to someone, like maybe they wanted a cushion on the chair and we didn't show one, but I can pull a cushion on a chair. So, I'll have a few ideas pulled. Like a lot of the furniture in the store comes in different finishes. It's not on our floor model, but you can get just about anything in a different finish or slightly different style. So it's just a chance to give someone that a little more tailored experience without having to do a full design project.
Yesterday I had this like kind of somewhat of an epiphany. So I was out running. I was listening to a interior design podcast, and they were talking about books. And one person was talking about a book that was just all pictures, right? And you're leafing through it, and they loved it. And they made this joke that it's a book that's meant to be like kept shut. It's like, it's that nice. Tom Jones or something like that, maybe. And so, and I started thinking about it. I was like, oh, that's kind of ridiculous, because why would you need a book when we're in the internet age and there's all these pictures and images? But then I started thinking about it. I was like, well, wait a minute. Just like in the studio, I've got like 10 monitors, but they're all probably a little different in contrast, sharpness, and brightness and whatever, right? So it's like, well, what really is the image? And I was thinking of like how a book, at the end of the day, if you really, really want someone to understand color or really appreciate their product, it's going to be in a printed form and tons of review. And if it doesn't come out right the way it's supposed to, in the right blue and the right green, whatever, then you print it again until it's nearly perfect. So that when, and correct me if I'm right here, if you're a retailer, would you prefer to have something kind of in hard copy where that is what the producer intended it to look like? And then that way you're in your studio and you're showing something and you're consulting, versus like, hey, you showed me this picture online, but ultimately when it showed up, it was different. Is that accurate? Like kind of just do you rely on hard copy?
Yes. Some designers have tried to and are trying to move to a more digital space. I am a little old school. We have our digital realm of everything, but I also keep a hard copy of every PO, every invoice in binders for our clients.
Right.
But as far as color goes, we have a full sample library in the studio. So if someone is looking at something in the store and it's online, I can walk over there and grab the hard copy, because color does not always, and different screens. I mean, I had this happen recently with this sweet architect that I'm working with on a project in Florida, and we were trying to get the exterior paint color right. And he sent me something, and I called him, and I'm like, this is pink. And he's like, no, it's white. It's white. He's like, no, I looked at it on, 3 different monitors, and on one monitor it looked a little pink, but on the other 2 it didn't look pink at all. I'm like, well, I'm looking at it on a sample deck and it's pink, and we're going to use this color instead. And he was like, oh yeah, I probably should have just, called you and asked. It's like, probably. But we got it figured out. But yeah, it was just the very epitome of don't trust your computer screen. You know, I always send samples of a big, I mean, Sherwin-Williams and Ben Moore both make big, like 8.5 by 11 size of just, it's just the color that.
Oh, instead of the small sample.
Instead of the small chip, it is a big.
Okay.
And I send those to our clients. And when we're doing presentations, that's what I've got sitting out there, because seeing it on that size and putting that size up, you know, if they're trying to figure out if that's the color that they like for their room, they put that up on the wall versus that small card. It's a little easier to see how the lighting touches it and, you know, how it affects and if it pulls a little green or blue. So
I want to ask you about this. This is like, even though your storefront, Peachtree Co. is it's not even 6 months old. You did have a chance to do a fundraiser, if you will, around the Auburn, Alabama game, the Iron Bowl. Talk me through that idea, and then ultimately, you know, how successful was it?
So we, everyone that I work with or works around me laughs because I get, you know, I'm up with a baby every night. And so I get some of the craziest ideas at like 2:00 in the morning.
There you go.
And my rule is if you get a text from me at 2 a.m., it's because I need to get the idea out. Please don't respond. But I came up with this idea. So we did this fundraiser for Make It Matter, which is the organization that Erica from Noella's, which if you haven't talked to her yet, she and her husband are fantastic people and you need to speak with them.
Okay.
But it is their nonprofit. The heart behind it is to help kids aging out of foster care.
Yeah.
And give them the opportunity to have a job and a place to live, you know, for I think it's a year to a year and a half after they age out of foster care. And they want to be able to provide them everything. And so, you know, we have a lot of adoption in our family. And so I've just got a heart for this, and hearing them talk about their passion behind this organization, I'm like, I want to do something, even if it's not huge, that can help. So this year we actually got a fair amount of people that came in and bought something because we were doing this. But the fun aspect of it was just seeing which team donated more.
Right.
Auburn did win this year
Did they?
in our little Iron Bowl. But you know, it was good. I think that we were able to donate about 10% of the proceeds. And so that was nice. It wasn't a huge amount, but you know, it's something. And I'm hoping that next year we can do it again. And maybe because people have heard about it, it will go over a little bit better.
I'd love to talk to Make It Matter, because I interviewed Brandon Bishop from McFAPA, which is the Madison County Foster and Adoptive Parent Association. So that was recently. And so aging out, I'm assuming it's 18. They never got adopted,
18.
and now they're going to go to school and get into the workforce and all that. So it's and hats off to, as we just talked about in that program, hats off to any that extend themselves and take on fosters and or adoption. Just how critical it is.
Yeah, both of my parents are adopted.
Were
and
they?
then my stepdad adopted me.
You.
So we've got a lot of adoption in the family. But yeah, so I just, you know, it's not something that I feel like there are people who are called to foster and called to adopt. I would love to help in any way I can, but I think 3 kids is.
Well, I was just about to say, if I see you with a 4th kid, I'm going to have to ask, so adoption, or did you have a 4th?
I have not been called to adopt.
Okay.
I love that is something that God calls some families to do. I just don't think that it's something that my family is being pulled towards. And that's just, everyone's got their different track. But I do think that there are other ways that you can help out kids that need the help. So,
all right. So let's talk about, you're only 6 months old. I think things seem to be going well.
yes.
You're in a great location. This isn't like you had the company in Atlanta.
Yes.
You know what you're doing. You're not going to be told no, and don't listen to people's comments and stuff because they're not you,
Yes.
right? But what are your, I don't want to say what's your long-term plans, but like what is your just near term, what do you really want to accomplish in the next year?
So we have been bidding out for some multifamily projects, and I won't say that I make a New Year's resolution, but I do stop and I think of like, what is one thing that if at the end of this year we have accomplished, I will be happy.
Yeah.
And I just want to bring on one multifamily project because I miss that realm. I love working with my homeowners. I love my residential work. Multifamily is just, it is a larger scale home. And so, the end user is a tenant and not, an individual homeowner, but it's just a lot of fun.
Are we talking like apartments, condos?
Yes,
Okay.
apartments.
Okay.
And that's what my background is. And so we were talking earlier about hiring, and I brought on someone who also has a background in multifamily. And I'm hoping that we can get one on the books this year. That would be my goal. And, ultimately I want a nice little team, a nice little Peachtree team. So I'm trying to keep our growth manageable, because I have been in firms where they grew too fast.
Yeah.
And I don't want to ever put other people in that position. So I'm doing a slow and steady growth, but,
what would be an example where the scale became too quick, too fast? Like based on the size you are now and the types of work you do, let's say you come across, is it a matter of like, I can handle like 50 apartments in a complex, but I can't handle 500? Like where is it that it becomes too much work or they won't even consider you because you're not of a certain size?
So it really just depends. The firm that I started out with, I interned with them when it was the owner, who was not a designer. She was a marketing major, and she just was scrappy. And she had 2 designers on her team, and then it was me, an intern. And then, 2 years later, I came back asking for a job. And at that time, she had grown to, I think that there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us. And then it went from 5 of us to 10. And work-wise, that was fine. But when you have such a massive growth and you have really curated your company culture, it's too much too fast. You really can't, hash out are people getting along? Is this turning into somewhere that there is something not working about? Is it really a team? And so my goal is, as I feel that we need to add, we could end up bringing on another designer this year. We'll just see how growth continues to go. But, it's also about getting the right person on the team.
Yeah.
So having a designer with some experience leads to being able to bring on a little bit more. Whereas if you've got someone maybe a little newer, they might be a great fit for the company, but they're still learning, which everyone is in that phase at some point, but you can't be as hands off. So you can't bring in as much work with someone who needs a little bit more, not hand holding, but
I know what you
just,
mean.
encouragement and help. So,
but then just help me understand if you an apartment complex, and it could even be a builder that only has certain, not custom, but has floor plans.
So,
and is it a matter of like, okay, no matter what, could be an apartment complex, but there's going to be a studio, there's going to be a 1-bedroom and a 2-bedroom, and no matter what, whatever design you do for those 3, 4, 5 options, then it's obviously it's consistent across, right?
Yes. So typically with multifamily, the designer is brought in for the amenity spaces, and then the architect does the floor plans for the individual units. Designers work with the architects for the amenity spaces, and then the designer is the one picking, these fixtures are going into all of the units. And it's with hotels, it's very much the same. It's very copy and paste. There might be like one unit is lighter, one is darker, but they all need cabinets, they all need countertops, they all get, carpet. And then you do the model units, which is just setting up pretty much just a small home. So the team size, if you have an effective team, doesn't so much matter unless you are starting to get so many in where you need someone who their whole job is, I'm just looking at what finishes are going into the individual units. And then you've got another side that is just looking at the amenity spaces.
Okay.
And that's where I came from. They worked up to that, where there was one person who her whole day was every apartment complex that came in, she was picking the finishes. And that was about it. She did a few of the models, but not many. And then, I was over 12 when I left. I think I had 12 apartment complexes that I was, at the time I had a senior designer overseeing me, but, I was overseeing and doing drawings for 12 units at one time, or 12, individual complexes at one time. So,
I'm definitely one of those people, like if I stay in a really large hotel or you're just like in a really large building and you're like, okay, I would be thrilled if I was like the toilet maker and I get the order that comes in that says, hey, we need 2,000 toilets. Like, yes. Because then there's that consistent, there's 2,000 of those pictures and there's 2,000 or 3,000 TVs.
Yes.
You're like, some hotel rooms will have 3 TVs. And they do that for every one of their units. Like, wow, that's gotta be great, right? When you're that vendor.
Yes.
And you have that relationship.
Yes. I will say that the tracking on that, managing when it's all going to be delivered and stuff is a logistical.
Oh, I bet.
Circus. But
yeah. Then there's things that are broken
and then you've got to, and that's part of the project management side of what we do. And we are talking to someone right now to help with some of the tracking and that kind of side of business, because the more projects we bring in, the more, it
increases the complexity.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Just like you were talking, like on starting a business, right? Well, now there's an accounting piece,
yes.
and there's a finance piece, and then maybe an investment piece, and then what about the employees and benefits? And it becomes a lot more than just interior design or furnishings, right?
Yes.
All right, so we're gonna play Name That Tune.
Oh, geez.
But I liked that one of your favorite genres is just pop. And I think any of us that have kids over time will probably be exposed to the music they listen to, and there's like pop radio and.
Yep. And I probably could not tell you some of the current pop
Nope.
things. So
I'm throwing you a bone.
Okay.
This is going back into your wheelhouse.
Okay.
All of these songs should have been in 2010.
Okay. You still might get me
I
on
don't
some
know.
of them, but
this
we'll
might be
see.
like what, just still in high school. We'll see how you do. I think these probably all were in the top 40 at some point.
Okay.
All right. So stop me when you know the title or artist.
Okay.
I think our volume's good. Here we go. First one.
Oh, this is Bruno Mars.
Yes, you got it. Do you know the name of the song?
Oh, yes, but it has escaped me.
Let's hear him sing a little bit. This obviously wasn't like your engagement song
No,
or
it was not.
anything important to you. Just the way you are.
Yep. See,
But isn't music amazing where of the thousands and thousands and thousands of songs, there's somehow some unique beginning to all of them that in like name that tune within a second, you'll be like, you just know.
yes. Now there are some artists that if you play it, I could probably offhand just be like, oh yeah.
Okay, Wendy, she's 1 for 1. Okay. Song number 2.
Rihanna.
Yes. Title?
Oh. This one I'm not going to get the title right because I know it's a Rihanna song, but
Only Girl in the World.
okay.
That's all right. You're getting the artist.
See?
I'm usually, well, I guess I'm probably going to be more clear on who the artist is versus titles, but I guess
Yes.
it depends on the. Now
Now,
this
if you
one,
get one that I'm, that I really enjoy, I can, but we'll see. Oh, this is Train. And it's Hey Soul Sister.
there you go. Train is great.
Train is great. I
Train
love
came out when Wendy and I were first married. They that Drops of Jupiter.
Uh-huh.
That was like 1999, 2000. Might have been 2001, but
Some of their obscure songs are really good too.
yeah. Yeah, obscure is interesting. I was listening to actually like Van Halen last night, and there was a song I had never heard because I'm sure it's like on one of their deep cuts, and I was like, that's kind of cool. Very different than the Van Halen like normal sound. That's probably why I never went anywhere. But I was shocked. Okay, next one. So she's 3 for 3.
Oh. Jason Derulo.
Yes.
I know. Oh, Solo. Is that the name
Yeah,
of it?
Riding Solo.
Yeah, okay.
So are these flashing you back?
Yes,
to,
they
like,
are.
Were you like a sophomore, junior in high
No,
school?
I was a senior.
You were a senior.
And a freshman in college in 2010.
Okay. So there's like cruising around in your car.
Yeah. That specific one, the first time that I had ever heard it was I was on the only recruiting trip that I went on for swimming, and I had never heard this song before. And on a recruit trip, you have like a host that's on the swim team, and so that was like the song that they were all playing, and that was the first time I had ever heard that song.
Now I like this band. This one, yeah, it's a band. Okay, next one.
Oh my gosh, I know this song too.
Very distinct.
Yes. Oh my gosh, why can't I think of this name?
You might get the title before you get the artist on this.
I know. And
Wait for them.
it's Fireflies.
Yes.
And I am trying to remember the name of the band.
2 words. The second word is city.
Oh my gosh.
First word is an animal. It's a bird. Bird that doesn't really fly. Do owls fly? Owl City.
Is it Owl City?
Yeah, okay. I've never seen them fly. I just see them sit on
They
a
do
tree.
fly. Yes.
Well,
You said bird, and my oldest is an animal. I mean, that child knows every. And so you said bird, and my instant was like, Bald Eagle. That's not the name of the band. But I just...
It's not the first bird that comes to your mind.
Owl is not the first bird that came to my mind.
All right, is that 4 for 4 or 5 for 5? She's killing it. We got 2 more for you. Okay.
Oh, yeah. I can see his face, and I cannot... Oh, yeah. This is Maroon 5.
Yes.
I do not know the song.
Okay.
But I do know it's Maroon 5 because they've got a very... Okay.
All right, last one.
Okay. This is Airplanes.
No.
No?
Just wait for a second.
Okay.
You're thinking of a band. This is a...
Oh.
Wait for it.
Yes.
He used to always wear a bandage on his face. Nelly.
Okay.
Just a Dream.
I know. Yeah. I didn't say Just a Dream. I did know what, like, once he said it, I was like, that's the name of the song. But Nelly was one that I heard it more so at like school dances and things than something that I personally listened to. But yeah, I listen to a lot of Zac Brown Band and Taylor Swift these days. But
I like Zac Brown. Has he come out with new music yet?
Yes.
Have they?
Yeah, we have. I've been to.
You went to Nashville to see him?
I haven't been to Nashville to see him. We saw him a couple months ago. He did a concert right before his newest album came out at Truist, the Braves Stadium.
Yeah.
But I've seen him 3 or 4 times in concert.
That's cool.
We were supposed to go see Chris Stapleton, and then my orthopedic surgeon decided that my ACL repair was going to be the day before, so we did not make it to Chris Stapleton. But
I don't know if you saw him before he left for school, but our son Jason just had UCL surgery, otherwise known as Tommy John, on his elbow.
Yes.
And he has labrum surgery on his shoulder. As soon as that is at a point where he'll be basically 9 months in recovery on an elbow and his shoulder.
Yeah.
And it's just, he graduates from high school this year, and our son's getting married, and he's supposed to go to college, and so I feel bad for him.
Yeah.
Well, Carolyn, it's been a pleasure. I kind of forgot to mention at the beginning, you reached out to me, and I'm assuming that was kind of around the time you were opening up and trying to get on the podcast circuit that's here in Huntsville, and
yes,
want to do everything we can to help promote you and celebrate. Right. I'm curious, did you work with Eric Gonzalez Tablada over at Stovehouse?
I did. Yes.
From Nowcom, because he rents all the Stovehouse stuff, right?
Yes, he does. He and I were back and forth a lot in email. I didn't actually meet him until he was out of town for something when I was touring and all of that. So Jonathan over at Stovehouse actually was who I did my tour with. But Eric was how I got.
It's kind of funny how it all weaves together. He's been on the show.
Does.
He was episode 32, I believe. And this is episode 55.
Yes.
I hadn't even mentioned that yet. So, in fact, I'm getting to the point now where I'm like, wait a minute, where are we at?
You're over halfway to 100.
I know. Yeah, I've got to really think about 100 and what that means and what I want to do. But I don't know. I'm not that concerned about it. But anything, any shout outs, any last thoughts that you want to extend?
I don't know. I guess, thank you for having me on here. Yeah. And then, come out and see us at Stovehouse. Peachtree Company is open Tuesday through Saturday from 10 to 6. And then on the design firm side, it's, appointment. We meet with our clients in there. But if you are looking at renovating a house or building a new house, check out our website and you can book a discovery call there.
I'll put you in touch with the episode I'm releasing tomorrow. Of course, by the time people hear this, that'll already happen. Is Jacob Clark from Clark Holding, and he's trying to get into. He's a home builder and all that stuff. If you haven't met him, I always love to connect potential home builders.
Yes.
With designers.
Yes.
Let me ask you this in closing. What is your signature when it comes to if there was a look at your portfolio? Yeah, and there's trends and different things, but really, what's your signature piece, style element?
I honestly, so I've been asked this before. I don't really have you look at this and that's just, oh, that's definitely Peachtree. And the reason that I don't is because I feel that it's very important to design for my client. And no two people are the same. So no two home is going to be the same. I don't want to push my personal style on anybody. So which makes my job a lot of fun because I'm always doing very different things. Yeah. So, but yeah, my I guess philosophy is that I want someone to love the home that they're in at the end of the day. And so whatever that is, to get them to love it, whether that's the style or, a certain feature, that's what we're going to design around. So
what are your thoughts on designing a man cave? And as you look around this, it's always weird to bring an interior designer into your home and please don't judge.
I don't judge.
But you should have seen it in episode 1. It's come a long ways. And sometimes Wendy's embarrassed of certain things I put up, but I'm a guy and she's a girl and, and I like to have my pandas hats in the corner. Of course, people can't see all that right now.
Yes.
But, I want it to be, I don't know what I want it to be, but give it a grade.
I am not going to do that.
She's giving me that's like a C-. I can see it. This is terrible.
I'm not going to do that, but I do love that you went with the dark, more masculine colors because that's if I do a guy's home or a man cave, we kind of gravitate towards those colors because that's just I have yet to have a guy turn around and be like, no, I want white.
Yeah.
But I do have, if you haven't been by the store yet, I have one light fixture in there that every man that walks in gravitates towards it.
Okay.
And I want you to come in and see if you can see which one you think it is.
Let's go in, Wendy. It started out as a squirrel gray, and the only reason I did that was that I used to use RGB lights, and they will show up better on the gray. And then somehow I need to repaint. I have all kinds of holes, right, from just hanging the pictures at 9,000 different ways. And so I think I love blue. I love navy blue. I was really into the royal blue when that was a hot color. It still probably is. Maybe it's on its way out, but I've got some amazing suits, by the way. I have all the colors, rose, pink. What's the one green? There's a turquoise. I've got a turquoise green. I have a sea green, gray, brown, black, all that stuff. But I think this was my son. I didn't want to go buy some more paint, and I just happened to have this blue paint, and I just decided, okay, well, let me just put it on both sides of the shot.
Yes.
And I just like it more than the gray. So maybe I'll change my mind at some point. But it's funny because I went to At Home. At Home is one of my favorite stores. And it is fun to look for lamps and lampshades. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is a very involved process.
Yes.
And you should have seen the plant. I think it's actually here. You could see the plant that I originally had here. And I did have that American flag. I got that at Home. I think I got the astronaut picture there. But a lot of things have kind of come and gone.
Yes.
So, and actually I got the recording thing there. But I did put the white paper behind it to make it pop more. So anyway, I'm just trying to get her get in her good graces and talk her through my insanity.
it It works.
And I do want, so this Alabama thing, obviously you can tell it's just a bunch of 1x4s, maybe even 1x6s that are slammed together. I would love to get like a full slab of wood, and I have a friend that's going to help me and do one that's a lot more intricate and just expensive looking. But I'm very proud of Alabama now, and I'm glad you're here and you departed that evil place of Georgia.
I'm
just kidding.
I'm glad to be here. So
my mother is over in Tequila.
Okay.
In a assisted living, and my sister lives in Tequila as well.
Yeah.
So
once we left Atlanta, I mean, I keep making all of our family is still there, and I keep making the joke that it's only half a joke. That you couldn't pay me enough to move back.
Yeah, it's a big city.
I just, I love Huntsville. It's a great place to be. It's a great place to be raising kids.
Yeah.
The community has been wonderful. It's a daunting task to come to a new city where you don't know anyone and start. Yes, the design firm has been in existence since 2016, but, moving it to a brand new city where I don't know anybody was a daunting task. And I have been welcomed here with open arms, and, I've made friends and connections that have just helped me feel welcome, my family feel welcome, and then my company feel welcome. And, I wouldn't have opened our design studio and I wouldn't have expanded if I didn't love where we are.
Sure. So let me ask, this is my last question, and this is Wendy's question. We talked a little bit about, we kind of touched on the fact that most of the design schools are going to be they're on the East Coast and then the South.
Yes.
Right. You are from Georgia, not too far away from here, but what are those things that are unique to Alabama and Huntsville specifically, and that might be different than even in Georgia? So like there's Southern living, there's Southern charm, Southern, the way we decorate and all that, but then there's Alabama and there's Georgia and there's the Southeast, and like, is there something that kind of surprised you, and just a difference of you're only an hour and a half away or 2 hours away from, well, maybe, I'm sorry, that was school, 4 hours away from where you grew up.
I'm like
one state away.
Yeah.
To something that's like, wow, I didn't kind of expect this, or this is different in this part of Alabama.
So, Atlanta, at least the part of Atlanta that we were in, because Milton area is still kind of horse farms up there. So the farmhouse style is still very big in that north part of Atlanta. You get a little bit more modern in kind of Buckhead area. Have I done anything farmhouse, really? I don't think that I've really had a farmhouse project in Huntsville, and that surprised me. Now I'm sure that there are people out there who that's still very much their style, and that style, I take elements of it for other things, but but in Huntsville, I love the mountains, and I love when a client wants to really kind of bring in that environment into their home. But yeah, when we were looking at houses, we ended up where we were because I wanted to be able to see the mountains. And now I have to drive over mountain every day. But
because you're in the same mountains as Milton, you still have that same chain, right? Or are you east of it?
We are just. We're not in the mountains.
Okay.
If you go a little bit farther north, you've got like Dahlonega, and that's all.
So it must move. Okay. All right.
But it's a little farther north than where we are. They're hills, but it's not a mountain range.
It'd be interesting if you were down in like Coleman or Hartselle, if you would get a farmhouse look because it is just more rural,
Yeah, I wonder that too.
even if it's only 30 miles away.
We do projects kind of all over. And I had a project up in Ohio, and that was a very transitional home. One of my favorite houses that I've gotten to do, because she really let me just, whatever crazy idea I had, she was good with. But then, we do a couple. I've finished one condo at the beach. I've got another one that's about to start demo soon. And then I've got a couple of other projects coming down that are on coastal regions, and just seeing the different styles just in different areas is just so much fun. That's part of what I love about what I do, is I get to really just, I don't hold myself to one style because it's just so varying.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you, Carolyn.
Thank you for
Thank you for reaching
me.
out, and glad to have you on episode 55.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me. I've loved talking to you.
No, thank you. Equal, and cute boys. It was fun to bring up your pictures, and thanks for being a good poster. Like, I don't really post. I do enough just to keep up with my podcast.
Yes.
The last thing I'm going to do is like have the energy to actually post something like anyone who cares.
I was impressed that you found my personal Instagram page, because I keep it,
Well, the E throws, that must be your middle name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is that Emily?
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth. Okay.
Mm-hmm. It's a family name.
Yeah.
Me and everyone else, right?
Well, next time we can talk about Fester.
Yes.
I'd love to hear more about that, the origin of that name, and of course we'll do an update on where things are.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But hey, we will come over to Stovehouse, and I do want to take the challenge to look for the lamp that or light that all the guys like.
Yes.
All right. Have a good one.
Have a good one.
Take
Thanks.
care.